Hey guys, Mr. Fair here. We're going to get started. Second day of World War One. Yesterday we were able to cover the beginning of the war, the causes. We talked about sinking of Lusitania, the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the alliance system, all those different things. We took a look at that map, and we learned about how the U.S. got involved and the problems with the U-boats and submarine warfare. So we got all that out of the way. Today, we're going to focus on the social stuff, what was happening in the United States, the home front, and in particular, two groups, African Americans and women. All right. So we got two pictures here. On this side, we have the Harlem Hellfighters, one of the most famous fighting units of World War One. And on this side, we have women working in the factory. So that sort of gives you an idea of where we're heading today in terms of the direction that the two groups are going to take. So as we go to 1910, we're in the middle of the Progressive Era. What was the situation for African Americans? So economically, there's very little mobility. There's sharecropping. Okay, sharecropping is a system that's been in place since right after the Civil War during the Reconstruction period, and what that did was that replaced the plantation system. And throughout the last 40 years, 50 years, we're looking at from 1865 to 1910, you're seeing that African Americans are stuck in the sharecropping occupation and they're not able to save any money because they're constantly being put in debt. Socially, we're going to see a lot of issues with racism. Okay, that's clear. We're going to know that. We're going to talk about that. Jim Crow and lynchings. Okay, lynchings. We're going to focus on one in particular today that took place during this time period. Forewarned, it is a gruesome, terrible, despicable story. I just wanted you guys to have that up front because the picture I show is it's horrible. So you've been warned. Women, while they faced discrimination as well, it wasn't violent. They faced a lot of discrimination economically. They were very limited in their jobs as well. They could become a servant, laundress, work on a machine like we see over here. That's what semi-skilled operators means, like working in a factory that takes very little skill. Socially, they had two options: get married and have kids, or be called a spinster, which is a woman who did not get married and worked. So African Americans, World War One, military. The idea behind serving was that the thought process was this: if African Americans serve, then they'll have a stronger foothold to demand the rights that they should have had anyway under the 14th and 15th Amendments. So they saw it as a way to sort of maybe get a leg up and move forward. They were serving in segregated units, and we already talked about the Harlem Hellfighters. So the military side is really about moving forward after the war, right? They're serving patriots. They're helping preserve democracy overseas. Come home, get treated the right way. That was the goal. At home, what was happening? All right, so not everyone's going to go serve, right? African Americans in the South are facing all these problems, so they move, right? And when you move, there's got to be an attraction somewhere else, right? What's the pull factor, and where was the pull factor? Northern cities, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, Baltimore. Those are going to be the places that African Americans are going to look to go because that is where the jobs are. Factories, okay? And as the war kicks over, those factories are going to be making more and more. Like we talked about yesterday, the U.S. was supplying England and France. So this is a big movement. It's going to last a number of years, and we're talking lots and lots of people, right? Lots. I mean, I would say, guessing right now off the top of my head, you're talking million, right? Right off the top of my head. NAACP, it's going to start to play a major role, okay? And a lot of that has to do with the violence and the lynchings that are taking place. We're going to start to see legal action. We're going to start to see people organizing, okay? And that's going to happen also for African-American women in throughout the country. They're going to create sort of like support groups to send supplies to the guys that are overseas fighting. So there's a lot going on at home for African-Americans at this time. Okay, so I have some pictures now. We're going to get, this is segregation, right? This is all African Americans being at boot camp somewhere, and you can see what this is segregated units look like. Okay, they separated. There was no integration at this point. Everything is still based on Plessy versus Ferguson, separate equal facilities. All right, got a picture of soldiers overseas. All right, so this is one of the things I picked this out. Only